Have you ever trusted so deeply that you placed your entire life in a job, a colleague, or a boss, only to be betrayed, fired, and pushed to rock bottom? I gave everything to that company, believing loyalty meant something. They took my career, my reputation, my future. But when pain transforms into fire, betrayal becomes a weapon. And this time, my comeback wasn't just colder. It was more cruel than they could ever imagine. This is how I destroyed those who destroyed me first. My name is Emily Carter. And at 34, I thought I had everything figured out. Northwind Agency wasn't just where I worked, it was where I belonged. For 7 years, I'd poured my soul into that gleaming glass tower in downtown Seattle, climbing from junior creative to senior account director. The 20th floor was my domain, my second home, where I spent more hours than my actual apartment. That Tuesday morning started like any other. I arrived at 7:30 a.m., an hour before most colleagues, savoring my black coffee while reviewing the Morrison Industries campaign. Rachel Moore was already there. Of course, my closest friend, my confidant. The woman who'd held my hair back after too many drinks at last year's Christmas party. She gave me her usual warm smile from across the open floor plan. You look tired," she said, touching my shoulder gently. "Another all-nighter?" "The Morrison pitch is tomorrow," I replied, squeezing her hand. "It'll be worth it." Gregory Dalton, our creative director, emerged from his corner office. Gregory, the mentor who'd taken me under his wing, who'd promised I was next in line for partner. His salt and pepper beard and designer suits commanded respect. But to me, he was more than a boss. He was the father figure I'd needed after losing my dad 5 years ago. "Emily, could you join me in conference room C?" His voice was oddly formal. I grabbed my laptop, thinking he wanted to review the pitch. But when I entered, I found HR Director Janet Phillips sitting there with a manila folder. My stomach dropped. "Please, sit," Gregory said, not meeting my eyes. Janet cleared her throat. "Emily, we've received serious allegations about financial misconduct regarding the Brennan account. Money has gone missing, and evidence points directly to you." The words hit like physical blows. "What? That's impossible. I haven't." "We have documentation." Gregory interrupted, his voice cold as winter rain. "Email trails, altered invoices with your digital signature. The evidence is overwhelming." My hands shook. "Greg, you know me. 7 years." Which makes this betrayal even worse. He slid the termination papers across the table. "Effective immediately. Security will escort you out." I looked desperately at the glass walls, seeing Rachel watching from outside. Our eyes met, and she quickly looked away. Something in her expression. Was that guilt? "Please," I whispered. "Let me see the evidence. This is a mistake." "The decision is final," Janet said. "You have 10 minutes to clear your desk." The walk to my desk felt like a funeral march. Colleagues I'd laughed with, celebrated with, worked overtime with. They all averted their eyes. Only their whispers followed me. Kevin from accounting actually stepped back as I passed, as if betrayal was contagious. Security Officer Mills, who'd always joked with me about the Seahawks, now stood silent as I packed 7 years into a cardboard box. My awards, my photos, the stupid succulent Rachel had given me for my birthday. Each item felt like another piece of my identity being stripped away. "Time's up," Mills said softly, genuinely apologetic. As the elevator descended, each floor number felt like another level deeper into hell. 20, 19, 18. Counting down the years I'd never get back. The lobby's marble floors echoed with my heels, clicking toward the revolving door. Outside, Seattle's December rain began to fall. I stood there, box in my arms, watching through the windows as life continued on the 20th floor without me. Gregory had already returned to his office. Rachel was at my desk, my former desk, already going through my files. A text buzzed. "Mom, how's my successful daughter today?" I couldn't answer. How do you tell someone that everything you've built just collapsed in 10 minutes? That the people you trusted most had just destroyed you with surgical precision? I walked to my car in the parking garage, each step heavier than the last. Sitting in the driver's seat, surrounded by the ghostly silence, I finally let myself break. The sobs came violent and raw, my body shaking with the force of them. But between the tears, something else began to grow. A cold, sharp clarity. This wasn't random. This was orchestrated. And Gregory's refusal to show me evidence. Rachel's guilty look. They'd planned this. I gripped the steering wheel until my knuckles went white. They thought they'd destroyed Emily Carter today. They had no idea what they'd actually created. The first week was denial. I woke up at 5:30 a.m. like clockwork, shower, coffee, business attire, then remembered I had nowhere to go. The second week was rage. I threw my awards against the wall, watching them shatter like my career had. By the third week, desperation had set in. My savings evaporated faster than Seattle morning fog. $7,000 seemed like so much until rent, car payment, and health insurance devoured it whole. The unemployment office clerk looked at me with practiced pity. Financial misconduct allegations. That'll complicate your claim, Ms. Carter. Former colleagues wouldn't return my calls. LinkedIn connections quietly disappeared. Amy from Momentum Marketing, who'd begged me to join her team last year, now sent a curt email. Position's been filled. Best of luck. The creative industry in Seattle was small, incestuous. Word traveled fast. Emily Carter was toxic. Mom called daily. Honey, just come home to Portland. You can stay with me. I'm fine, Mom. Just between opportunities. The lies burned my throat. Days blurred together in my Queen Anne apartment. Refresh email. Nothing. Refresh job sites. Nothing. Refresh bank account. Negative trajectory. The walls felt closer each day, pressing in with the weight of failure. Then, Thursday happened. 3 a.m. Couldn't sleep. I started digging. Really digging. Into Northwind's public records, social media, anywhere for answers. Rachel's Instagram showed her at my desk, now her desk, with the caption, "New position, new possibilities." Blessed Gisi Senior Account Director. My position, my title, posted just 5 days after my termination. The rage that hit me was different from before. Colder, clearer. I kept digging. Gregory's LinkedIn showed unusual activity. Multiple Northwind employees had left recently, all from finance. Why? I remembered Jackson Wells, the CFO who'd quit suddenly 2 months ago. His departure had been explained as pursuing other opportunities. I messaged him from a new LinkedIn account, no response. But then I found his wife's Facebook, public posts about their sudden move to Portland and starting fresh after corporate betrayal. Corporate betrayal. I drove to Portland, told Mom I was visiting, then tracked down Jackson at a coffee shop his wife had tagged. He looked older, grayer, defeated. "Emily Carter," he said when I introduced myself. "They got you too." "What do you mean, too?" He laughed bitterly. "You think you're the first? Gregory's been cooking books for 3 years, moving client money through shadow accounts, billing for services never rendered. When someone gets too close or knows too much, boom. Fabricated evidence, terminated for cause, no severance, no legal recourse." My coffee went cold as he continued. "The Brennan account you were accused of mishandling? That money went straight into Gregory's Cayman account. But the paper trail, he's good. Makes it look like the terminated employee did it." Rachel knew. Rachel's his protege, his heir apparent. She probably planted the evidence herself. Jackson's eyes were hollow. "I've got proof, but my lawyer says it's not enough. They're too careful, too connected. Fighting them would cost more than I have left." I drove back to Seattle in the rain, Jackson's words echoing. But where he saw defeat, I saw opportunity. They were careful, yes, but they were also arrogant. And Rachel, Rachel was the weak link. She'd always been insecure, desperate for validation, prone to bragging after wine. That night, I stood at my apartment window, watching the Northwind building's lights twinkle in the distance. 23rd floor, Gregory's office, still lit at 11 p.m., probably celebrating another successful frame job. My phone buzzed. Eviction notice email. I had 30 days unless I paid 3 months back rent. My car payment was overdue. My mother had left another worried voicemail. Rock bottom felt like this: standing in the dark, professionally destroyed, financially ruined, socially exiled. The Emily who'd walked into that conference room 4 weeks ago would have crumbled completely. But that Emily was dead. They'd killed her with their betrayal. The woman standing at this window was something else. Something they'd created but wouldn't recognize. Something patient, methodical, and angry enough to burn their entire world down. I opened my laptop and created a new encrypted email account. Then I began making lists: every client, every contract, every employee who'd left suddenly, every financial discrepancy I could remember. Gregory Dalton thought he'd eliminated a threat. Rachel Moore thought she'd stolen a career. They had no idea they'd just created their worst nightmare, someone with nothing left to lose and everything to prove. The phoenix metaphor was too pretty for what I was becoming. Phoenixes rose from ashes in glory. I was rising from ashes in darkness, and I would bring that darkness with me. The eviction notice was the push I needed. I sold everything: jewelry, designer clothes, furniture, even my car. $8,000 total. Enough for a security deposit on a studio apartment in Rainier Valley, 40 minutes from downtown, where no one from my former life would ever venture. The building was a 70-year-old brick complex with thin walls and temperamental heating. My unit, 205, was 400 square feet of water-stained ceiling and peeling linoleum. The first night, I sat on the floor with my laptop and the boxes I couldn't bear to sell. 7 years of Northwind files I'd backed up to personal drives, believing they were portfolio pieces. Now they were evidence. I established a routine. Wake at 5 a.m., run 5 miles, clearing my head, sharpening my focus. Back by 6:30, shower with rust-colored water. Then the real work began. Every document, every email, every contract I'd ever touched got scrutinized. I built spreadsheets, cross-referencing dates, amounts, signatures. Patterns emerged. The Brennan account wasn't the first, just the most recent: Morrison Industries, Cascade Tech, Rainier Investments, all had discrepancies, all had resulted in someone's termination. I mapped it out on my wall with yarn and pins like some conspiracy theorist. But this wasn't theory. This was Gregory's blueprint for embezzlement. The coffee shop down the street, Grounded Dreams, offered Wi-Fi and anonymity. The owner, Marcus, never asked questions when I nursed a single black coffee for 6 hours. From there, I researched every terminated employee from the past 3 years. 15 people, different departments, different levels, same story: financial misconduct, immediate termination. Evidence discovered by either Gregory or Rachel. I created fake social media profiles and reached out. Most ignored me. 3 responded with terror, begging me not to contact them again. But 2, Sylvia Reeves and David Park, agreed to meet. Sylvia, former marketing director, met me at a bar in Tacoma. "They destroyed me," she said, downing her 3rd whiskey. "But I kept copies of everything. Call it paranoia, but I knew something was off." She slid me a flash drive. Good luck proving anything, though. David, former account manager, was angrier. Rachel was my friend. We started together, came up together. Then, one day, Gregory calls me in, and she's sitting there with fabricated emails I'd never sent. She couldn't even look at me. He gave me access to his cloud storage, gigabytes of data he'd secretly backed up. The picture crystallized. Gregory had been siphoning money for years, possibly millions. When audits loomed or someone got suspicious, he'd designate a fall guy. Rachel would plant evidence, usually someone she was close to. Easier to know their passwords, their habits, their vulnerabilities. The frame would be perfect, the person terminated, and any investigation would stop at the guilty party. But they'd made one mistake. They'd gotten greedy, increased frequency. 15 terminations in 3 years was a pattern. Patterns could be proven. I spent nights learning about forensic accounting from online courses, teaching myself to read between the numbers. Days were for surveillance. I'd take the bus downtown, watch Northwind from the Starbucks across the street. Gregory arrived at 8 a.m. sharp in his Tesla. Sees no. Rachel at 8:45 in her new BMW, probably bought with her promotion bonus. My replacement, an eager young woman named Jessica. At 9 a.m., looking overwhelmed. Week 3 in Rainier Valley. I discovered something crucial. Northwind was pitching the Fitzgerald Foundation, a $40 million contract that would be their largest ever. The presentation was in 6 weeks. Gregory would lead it personally, with Rachel as support. This was their Super Bowl. I knew their pitch style, their strategies, their weaknesses. More importantly, I knew the Fitzgerald Foundation's CEO, Maria Fitzgerald, had a zero-tolerance policy for financial impropriety. Her own father had been destroyed by corporate embezzlement. The plan formed, slowly, carefully. Not revenge. Revenge was emotional, sloppy. This was justice, served at absolute zero. I reached out to a forensic accountant through Sylvia's contact, someone who'd left one of the Big Four firms after exposing corruption. "Call me Sam," she said at our meeting in a Chinatown restaurant. "I hate these corporate predators. If you can get me more evidence, real evidence, I'll help you build a case that even the FBI can't ignore." That night, I stood at my small window, looking at the Seattle skyline. Northwind's building was invisible from here, but I knew it was there. Gregory was probably having his evening scotch. Rachel was likely still at the office, eager to prove herself worthy of my stolen position. They felt safe in their tower, protected by glass and corporate lawyers and carefully crafted lies. They shouldn't. I opened my laptop and began typing. Phase 1, infiltration. The Emily Carter they'd destroyed was gone. What remained was something they'd never see coming, patient, methodical, and completely invisible to their radar. The comeback had begun. Marcus at Grounded Dreams didn't ask questions when I applied for the barista position. "You're overqualified," he said, reviewing my fabricated resume that conveniently omitted Northwind. "Most of my baristas are artists or students. I need the flexibility to take care of my sick mother." I lied smoothly. "Part-time is perfect. 20 hours a week, minimum wage plus tips. Enough to cover rent and ramen." More importantly, it provided a cover story for anyone who might wonder what Emily Carter was doing these days. The morning shift started at 5 a.m., perfect. I'd work until noon, then dedicate afternoons and evenings to my real job, becoming someone Gregory Dalton would never recognize as a threat. The online courses consumed my nights. Corporate law through Harvard's extension program, digital forensics from MIT's OpenCourseWare, cybersecurity fundamentals from Stanford. I studied like my life depended on it, because it did. My old life was dead, but my new one was being forged in knowledge and discipline. The transformation wasn't just mental. My body became a project too. The gym in my building was a joke, 2 treadmills and a rusty weight set, but it was free and always empty. I started with YouTube videos, push-ups until my arms shook, planks until my core screamed, running stairs until my lungs burned. Pain became meditation. Each rep was for every lie they told, each mile for every dollar they stole. My body hardened, but more importantly, my mind sharpened. The emotional chaos that had consumed me after termination crystallized into something useful. Cold, calculated focus. Sam, the forensic accountant, met me weekly at different locations. "You're getting good at this," she said, reviewing my analysis of Northwind's public filings. "Too good for a barista." "I'm motivated," I replied, showing her the patterns I'd found, shell companies registered in Delaware, all with connections to Gregory's brother-in-law. "This is solid, but we need internal access, current documents, real-time transactions. I knew she was right. Everything I had was historical. To truly destroy them, I needed to catch them in the act. That's when fate intervened. Or maybe I'd manifested it through sheer will. Jessica Chen, my replacement, walked into Grounded Dreams on a Thursday morning, stress etched across her young face. I recognized her from my surveillance, though she didn't know me. I kept my head down, made her oat milk latte with the precise attention I once gave million-dollar campaigns. She became a regular, every morning, 7:15 a.m. sharp. Always the same order, always looking more exhausted. Week 3, she was crying at the corner table. "Rough morning?" I asked, bringing her a free muffin. Emily Carter would have been too proud for this performance, but I wasn't Emily Carter anymore. "It's this job," she sobbed. "I thought senior account director would be my dream. But it's a nightmare. My boss is impossible, the numbers never add up. And my colleague Rachel keeps asking me to sign things I don't understand." Bingo. "I'm Sarah," I said, sitting down during my break. "I used to work in corporate before. Life happened. Want to talk about it?" She did. Over the next weeks, Jessica unloaded everything: Gregory's increasing paranoia, Rachel's strange requests to backdate documents, mysterious transfers she was asked to process without documentation. "They're setting her up," Sam said when I reported back. "She's the next fall guy." "Not if I can help it," I replied. I became Jessica's confidant, Sarah the wise barista, who understood corporate life. I guided her carefully, suggesting she keep copies of everything for her records, recommending she document all requests via email for clarity, advising her to trust but verify financial transfers. Meanwhile, my studies accelerated. I learned SQL to understand database structures, Python for data analysis. I studied Northwind's contracts with obsessive detail, memorizing their standard terms, their markup rates, their billing cycles. The physical training intensified too. Krav Maga classes at a strip mall dojo. Not because I planned violence was Gregory's way, not mine. But learning to fight taught me something else: how to think 3 moves ahead, how to use an opponent's strength against them, how to stay calm when someone's trying to destroy you. 6 months after my termination, I looked in the mirror and barely recognized myself. 20 pounds lighter, but all muscle. Hair chopped short and dyed darker. Wardrobe reduced to black athletic wear and thrift store finds. The polished corporate executive was gone. In her place stood someone harder, smarter, and infinitely more dangerous. Jessica texted one evening, "Sarah, Rachel just asked me to transfer $2 to a weird account. She says it's for the Fitzgerald Foundation pitch, but something feels wrong. What should I do?" I smiled, the first real smile in months. "Document everything," I texted back. "Forward yourself copies. And whatever you do, don't sign anything without reading it first." The trap was being set, but this time, Gregory and Rachel were walking into it themselves. Thomas Brennan was 63, bitter, and drinking heavily when I found him at a dive bar in Everett. Former senior vice president of finance at Northwind. Terminated 8 months before me for breach of fiduciary duty. "Emily Carter," he slurred when I introduced myself. "Heard about you, Gregory's latest victim." "Not victim," I corrected. "I prefer future problem." He laughed, dark and appreciative. "You want the real dirt? Buy me another round." 3 whiskeys later, Thomas was ready to burn it all down. I kept everything, 20 years at that place. I knew where every body was buried. When they framed me, I thought about going to the authorities, but my lawyer said my non-compete and NDA would destroy me first. "NDAs don't cover criminal activity," I said quietly. His eyes sharpened, suddenly sober. "You really going after them?" "I'm going to end them." Thomas gave me everything: password-protected drives with 2 decades of financial records, recordings of Gregory discussing cleanup procedures. Most damning, emails between Gregory and Rachel planning my termination 2 months before it happened, discussing how to position Rachel for my role. But I needed more. I needed real-time access. That's when I created Miranda Walsh, CEO of Cascade Consulting, a boutique firm specializing in campaign optimization for nonprofits. I built her digital presence meticulously: website, LinkedIn, fake testimonials, even a staged photo shoot using a photographer from Craigslist who didn't ask questions. Miranda reached out to Northwind about potentially partnering for the Fitzgerald Foundation pitch. Gregory took the bait immediately. The $40 million contract had him salivating, and he needed every edge. The meeting was scheduled for a Tuesday afternoon. I spent 3 days preparing, voice coaching to lower my register, professional makeup that transformed my features, a wig that added 10 years, colored contacts that changed my brown eyes to green. A rented Audi and a borrowed designer suit completed the illusion. Walking into Northwind's lobby was surreal. The marble floors, the modern art, the efficient buzz of ambition, it all felt like entering a past life. But the security guard didn't recognize me. Neither did Janet from HR, who passed me in the elevator. Gregory's office hadn't changed. Same pretentious leather chairs, same view of Elliott Bay, same ego wall of awards and photos with minor celebrities. He stood when I entered, all practiced charm and calculated warmth. "Miranda, so pleased you could come." Rachel was there too, eager and attentive. She looked through me completely. To her, I was just another potential vendor to charm and exploit. "Your reputation precedes you," I said, my voice steady and unfamiliar even to myself. "I've heard you're the best at what you do." Gregory preened. "We've built something special here: integrity and innovation." The irony almost made me laugh. For an hour, I played my role perfectly. Miranda was impressed but shrewd, asking detailed questions about their financial structures to ensure compatibility. Gregory, desperate to land Fitzgerald, was unusually candid. He even pulled up internal documents on his screen, angling his monitor so I could see. "We have proprietary methods for optimizing client spending," he boasted, showing me a spreadsheet that was clearly double-booking services across multiple accounts. Rachel chimed in with her own revelations, trying to impress. "We've streamlined our procurement process through preferred vendors." She meant shell companies. I recognized 3 names from Thomas's files. I recorded everything through the pen camera Sam had provided. High-definition video and audio of them essentially confessing to fraud. "I'll need to review some sample contracts," I said, "to understand your terms structure." "Of course," Gregory agreed. Having Rachel pull files from recent campaigns, she printed them right there, handing me documents that showed clear patterns of overbilling and service inflation. The meeting ended with Gregory walking me out personally, his hand hovering near my lower back, the same move he'd used on young female employees for years. "I think we could do great things together, Miranda," he said at the elevator. "Oh, I'm counting on it," I replied. That evening, I sat with Sam in her apartment, reviewing the footage. "This is it," she said. "This is enough for the FBI, wire fraud, embezzlement, conspiracy. Gregory's looking at 20 years minimum." "Not yet," I said. "I want them to hang themselves completely. The Fitzgerald pitch is in 2 weeks. That's when they'll make their biggest move." Sam studied me. "This isn't just about justice anymore, is it?" "No," I admitted. "Justice would be them in jail. I want them to lose everything first, the same way they did to me, to Thomas, to everyone they've destroyed." Jessica texted that night. "Something big is happening with the Fitzgerald account. Rachel's been shredding documents all day." I smiled in the darkness of my studio apartment. They were panicking, making mistakes. The methodical machine of their fraud was starting to crack. 2 weeks until the Fitzgerald pitch. 2 weeks until I pulled the trigger on everything I'd built. Gregory thought he was about to land the biggest contract of his career. Instead, he was about to lose everything he'd ever stolen, and everyone would be watching. The morning of the Fitzgerald presentation. I sat in grounded dreams at 4 a.m. Laptop open, finger hovering over the send button. 6 months of evidence compiled into a devastating portfolio. Financial records, recorded confessions, documented patterns of fraud spanning 5 years. Sam had packaged it perfectly: professional, irrefutable, damning. The recipients were carefully chosen: the FBI's White-Collar Crime Division, the SEC, the Washington State Attorney General, every major news outlet in Seattle, every member of Northwind's board of directors, and, of course, Maria Fitzgerald herself. But not yet. Timing was everything. At 9 a.m., Gregory and Rachel would walk into the Fitzgerald Foundation's boardroom, confident in their pitch, unaware their empire was already crumbling. I hit send at 8:47 a.m. By 9:15, my phone exploded with notifications. The Seattle Times breaking news alert: major creative agency under federal investigation for fraud. Como News: FBI raids Northwind agency offices. My former colleague's social media lit up with shock and speculation. Jessica called me, panicking. "Sarah, something insane is happening at my work. The FBI is here, they're seizing computers, boxing up files, everyone's being questioned." "Just tell the truth," I advised. "You documented everything like I suggested, right?" "Yes, everything." "Oh God, they're arresting my boss." The livestream from a local news crew showed Gregory being led out in handcuffs, his face pale with shock. Rachel followed minutes later, crying. Her perfect composure finally shattered. The image was everything I'd imagined and more. But I wasn't done. At noon, I sent the second wave, this time to every Northwind client. The email, from an anonymous whistleblower, contained enough evidence to show how they'd been systematically overcharged for years. Morrison Industries alone had been defrauded of $2 million. The clients reacted swiftly. Lawsuits were filed by end of business. Contracts were terminated immediately. Northwind's phones rang off the hook with demands for refunds, explanations, meetings with lawyers. By 3 p.m., Northwind's board had called an emergency meeting. By 5 p.m., they'd filed for Chapter 11 bankruptcy. The agency that had stood for 30 years collapsed in 8 hours. That evening, the local news ran a special segment. They'd somehow obtained internal emails. I wondered how that happened, showing Rachel's role in framing former employees. Her LinkedIn profile disappeared within hours. Her Instagram went private, but not before someone had screenshot her Blessed Zeus senior account director post and made it viral with the caption, "This aged poorly." Gregory's assets were frozen by federal order. His Tesla was repossessed from the courthouse parking lot while news cameras rolled. His wife filed for divorce within 48 hours, apparently. She hadn't known about the Cayman Islands accounts or the affair with a junior designer. The dominoes kept falling. Other employees came forward with their stories. The Department of Labor opened an investigation into wrongful terminations. 15 lawsuits were filed by former employees within a week. Thomas Brennan called me, drunk but jubilant. "You did it. You actually did it. They're done. Finished." Gregory's looking at decades in prison. Sylvia texted simply, "Thank you." David sent a news article with the message, "Karma's a beautiful thing." But the sweetest moment came from an unexpected source. Maria Fitzgerald herself, interviewed about why she'd chosen to work with the FBI, said something that made everything worth it. "When someone sent me evidence that Northwind was planning to defraud our foundation, using the exact same methods they'd used on others, I knew we had to act. Whoever that whistleblower was, they saved us $40 million and helped bring justice to dozens of victims." I watched the interview from my studio apartment, still in my grounded dreams apron. Tomorrow, I'd serve coffee to oblivious customers who had no idea their barista had just orchestrated one of the biggest corporate takedowns in Seattle history. My phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. "I know it was you, Rachel." I deleted it without responding. She could suspect all she wanted from her jail cell. Miranda Walsh had never existed. The anonymous whistleblower would never be found. Emily Carter was legally dead, living quietly as Sarah the barista. Another text, this one from Jessica. "I don't know how to thank you. You saved my career, maybe my life. The FBI agent said if I'd signed those transfer documents, I'd be facing charges too. Just pay it forward, I replied. Help someone else someday. The news cycle would move on. Gregory would go to prison. Rachel would never work in the industry again. Northwind would be remembered as a cautionary tale about corporate greed. And Emily Carter. She got something better than her old life back. She got justice, served ice cold. 3 weeks after the collapse, I received a text from a burner phone. Parking garage on Pine, level 3, midnight, come alone. G. Gregory. Out on bail, awaiting trial. Every instinct screamed trap. But I went anyway. Not as Sarah the barista, not as Miranda Walsh. As myself. Emily Carter. Risen from the ashes he'd created. The garage was empty except for his rental car. The Tesla was gone, along with everything else. He stood against the concrete pillar, looking like he'd aged 10 years in 3 weeks. Designer suit replaced by off-the-rack gray. Perfect beard now patchy and unkempt. I knew it was you, he said as I approached. The FBI doesn't know, Rachel doesn't know, but I do. The precision, the timing, it had your signature all over it. I stopped 10 feet away, hands visible, posture relaxed. The Krav Maga training had taught me distance control. Hello, Gregory. How? His voice cracked. You were nobody. A terminated employee with no resources, no connections. How did you destroy everything? You taught me, I said simply. 7 years of watching you manipulate, scheme, and destroy. I just turned your own methods against you. He laughed bitterly. I underestimated you. You didn't see me at all. I was just another piece on your board to sacrifice. That was your mistake. You never considered the piece might learn to play. His hands clenched. Do you have any idea what you've done? 30 years I built that agency. Hundreds of jobs, millions in revenue. Built on fraud, built on the careers you destroyed. Thomas Brennan's family lost their house. Sylvia Reeves attempted suicide. David Park's wife left him because he couldn't find work for a year. My voice remained steady, emotionless. You want to talk about destruction? Let's talk about the 15 lives you ruined to cover your theft. Business is brutal. We all knew the game. No. You changed the rules and didn't tell anyone else. You made us all believe in something. Integrity, loyalty, family, while you plotted our terminations in boardrooms. He stepped forward. I didn't move. I could kill you right now, he whispered. Make it look like suicide. Desperate former employee couldn't handle the guilt of destroying so many jobs. You could try. I pulled out my phone, showing him the recording app. But this conversation is being live-streamed to my attorney. Your bail would be revoked before my body got cold. His face went white. You're recording this? Just audio, nothing admissible. You haven't confessed to anything new. I just wanted insurance. I put the phone away. Besides, you won't kill me. Not because you're not capable, we both know you are, but because you still think you can win at trial. Your lawyer probably told you the case has weaknesses. You're hoping for a plea deal, minimal time, maybe even probation. His expression confirmed it. Here's what your lawyer doesn't know. I continued. I kept the best evidence for trial. Rachel's recorded confession. Oh yes, she called me last week, trying to make a deal. Your brother-in-law ready to testify about the shell companies to save himself, and Jessica, sweet Jessica, who documented every illegal request you made her process. You're lying. January 15th, you transferred $3 million from the Morrison account to Cascade Holdings. February 9th, $2 million from Brennan Industries to Evergreen LLC, March 22nd. Stop. His facade finally cracked completely. What do you want? Money? I have some hidden. I don't want your money. I don't even want an apology. We both know it would be meaningless. Then why? Why meet me? I stepped closer, close enough to see the fear in his eyes. Because I wanted you to know it was me. When you're in federal prison, when Rachel turns state's witness against you, when your wife takes everything in the divorce, When your name becomes synonymous with corporate fraud, I wanted you to know that Emily Carter did this. The nobody you dismissed, destroyed, and discarded. This isn't over. Yes, it is. I turned to leave, then paused. Your trial starts in 6 months. Your lawyer will tell you to take the deal. 15 to 20 years. Take it. Because if you go to trial, I'll make sure you get life. You can't. I destroyed your empire in 8 hours, Gregory. Imagine what I can do with 6 months. I walked away, my footsteps echoing in the empty garage. He called out once, something about revenge and justice. But I didn't turn around. There was nothing left to say. Outside, Seattle's night air was crisp and clean. I walked back to my studio apartment, knowing this was the last time I'd ever see Gregory Dalton as a free man. The confrontation hadn't brought satisfaction or closure. It had simply been necessary, a final move in a game that was already won. Tomorrow, I'd serve coffee and continue building Sarah's quiet life. Emily Carter had gotten her revenge. Now it was time to let her rest. 6 months later, the news barely made the third page. Former agency executive sentenced to 22 years, Gregory Dalton, once Seattle's golden boy of creative marketing, would spend the next 2 decades in federal prison. Rachel Moore got 8 years after her testimony. She'd be out in 5 with good behavior, but her career was ash. I read about it while opening Grounded Dreams at 5 a.m. Marcus had promoted me to manager. Sarah was reliable, trustworthy, never complained. The simple rhythm of grinding beans and steaming milk had become meditation. Each customer got my full attention. A perfectly crafted drink, sometimes a genuine smile. None of them knew their barista had orchestrated one of the biggest corporate fraud cases in Washington state history. Jessica still came in, now creative director at a small ethical agency. She testified brilliantly at trial, her documentation proving instrumental. We never spoke about Northwind. She ordered her oat milk latte. I made it perfectly. And we exchanged pleasantries about the weather. Some secrets were better buried. Thomas Brennan had gotten a settlement, $3 million in damages. He sent a thank you card to the coffee shop, addressed to S. Inside, just 2 words. Well played. I burned it in the sink. Mom visited last week, worried about her daughter, struggling in a minimum wage job. I let her believe I was figuring things out, finding myself, healing from corporate trauma. The truth, that I'd found something harder than success, wouldn't translate. How do you explain that serving coffee with anonymous precision was more honest than any PowerPoint presentation I'd ever delivered? Sam, the forensic accountant, occasionally stopped by. She'd gotten famous from the case, now ran her own firm specializing in corporate fraud investigation. You could work for me, she offered once. Your skills are wasted here. My skills got people destroyed, I replied, handing her a cortado. Now I just make coffee. She never asked again. The studio apartment in Rainier Valley had become home. I'd bought a bed, a decent chair, even hung some art from local thrift stores. The walls that once held conspiracy webs now displayed nothing but peace. The laptop that had orchestrated destruction now just streamed cooking shows. Some evenings, I'd walk past the abandoned Northwind building. For lease signs plastered across windows where ambitious young professionals once believed they were building something meaningful. The 20th floor was dark, our old workspace gutted. They'd tried to auction the furniture, but nobody wanted assets tainted by federal crime. I felt nothing looking at it. Not satisfaction, not regret, not even vindication. Just nothing. The Emily who'd cared about that building, that life, that version of success, she was gone. Buried deeper than any secret. Tonight was December 15th, exactly 1 year since my termination. I walked through Capitol Hill, anonymous in black athletic wear, invisible to the tech workers and artists flooding the bars. The rain had returned, Seattle's eternal baptism, washing the city clean and dirty simultaneously. I stopped at the overlook on Pine Street, city lights reflecting off wet pavement like broken glass. Below, Seattle churned on, ambition and betrayal, success and destruction, the eternal corporate dance. Somewhere down there, another Gregory was scheming, another Rachel was betraying, another Emily was about to be destroyed. But also, somewhere down there, someone was fighting back, building their case, planning their revenge, learning what I'd learned, that justice doesn't come from systems designed to protect the powerful. It comes from those willing to burn everything down and rebuild from ash. My phone buzzed. Unknown number, probably spam. But the message made me pause. I know what you did, and I need your help. Another casualty? I deleted it. Sarah the barista didn't help anyone beyond crafting perfect lattes. Emily Carter was dead, her mission complete. But walking home through empty streets, I couldn't shake the message. Another casualty. How many more Gregorys were out there? How many more lives being destroyed while HR departments looked away and boards of directors counted profits? No, I'd had my war. Won my battle. The cost, everything I'd been, was already paid. I reached my building, climbing the tagged stairwell to Unit 205. Inside, I sat at my small table, opened my laptop, and stared at the empty screen. The skills were still there. The knowledge, the connections, the ability to disappear and reappear as someone else entirely. One last look at the news. Gregory's mugshot stared back, hollow-eyed and broken. Below it, a comment section full of his other victims, finally free to speak. Their stories were brutal, familiar, endless. I closed the laptop. Tomorrow. I'd open the coffee shop at 5 a.m., serve the early crowd, listen to their small talk about weekend plans and weather complaints. Be Sarah, the helpful manager who made excellent coffee and never talked about her past. But tonight, in the silence of my studio, I allowed myself one moment of truth. Emily Carter hadn't just gotten revenge. She'd become revenge itself. Cold, patient, and ruthlessly precise. And somewhere in Seattle's darkness, another Gregory was counting his stolen money, never knowing that justice might be brewing in the most unexpected places. The rain kept falling. The city kept spinning. And I sat in perfect stillness. Neither Emily nor Sarah. Just a ghost who'd learned that sometimes the best revenge isn't just living well, it's making sure they never live well again. Thank you for listening to this story of betrayal and revenge. I'd love to know where you're listening from. Drop a comment below and let's connect. If this story resonated with you, please subscribe to the channel and share your thoughts. What would you have done in Emily's position? Let me know in the comments.